Okay, how's it going, everybody? I hope you're all doing well. Okay, so in this episode, I want to try to say something about the 2011 film Tree of Life and its connection to the German philosopher Martin Heidegger. More specifically, I think that the director of this film, the inimitable Terence Malick, is someone who's significantly influenced by Heidegger. And it shows in his films, especially in this one. Okay, so let me start with one of the most noticeable and intriguing things about Malick's camera work and the work of his cinematographer. Namely, the camera's constant movement. What I mean by this is that the camera almost never stays still. And it sweeps and it swerves in all sorts of unexpected directions. And so because of this, the characters are rarely at the center of the film. Rather, the camera seems to be constantly moving around them or leaving them and focusing in on other things, most often on the natural world around them. It's as if the camera is more interested in, more eager to explore the beauty and the mysteries that surrounds the characters than the characters themselves. It's as if it wants to, but is struggling to capture, to keep up with the world's multiplicity, with its infinite wonders and depth. Okay, now when Malick does this, when he constantly cuts away to the natural world, to a world that exceeds human appropriation and categories, he reminds me a bit of Heidegger. And actually, this isn't surprising, since Malick studied philosophy, and Heidegger in particular, when he was younger. Actually, that's kind of downplaying it a bit. I mean, apparently he was a Rhodes Scholar and attended Oxford University. He even translated one of Heidegger's works into English. So, as I mentioned at the outset, I think that what Malick is partly doing, and kind of has been doing throughout his career as a filmmaker, is he is transforming his knowledge of Heidegger into cinematic language or terms. Okay, well, so how so? How does he do this? Well, let me say something about Heidegger first. So, you see, according to Heidegger, our technological attitude or approach to the world has obscured, well, it's obscured being. And that's because we have this stance towards the world where we appropriate everything for our own convenience, where we reduce things to their practical use value for us. We use everything as a resource in the service of our will. And by doing this, we conceal the mysterious and the unique presencing or revealing of things. That is, we don't allow entities to just be what they are and to blossom in their own distinctive way. Now, maybe another way of saying this is that because we don't relate to nature in a way that precedes our human-centered agendas and our human-centered manipulations and interpretations, we never see it for what it is. We never see it as something unique and sacred and wondrous. Well, it seems pretty obvious to me that Malick in Tree of Life tries to break with this limited human-centered approach, and by displacing us from the center of creation, gives us an intimation of how it is the world might show up to us if we loosened our stranglehold over it. He shows us how it is by being patient and passive and not forcing things through human will that the world can disclose itself to us in all sorts of amazing ways. And what does it show up to us as? Well, as a constant series of revelations and miracles, right? I mean, just watch the film if you doubt what I'm saying. I mean, you see a tree or a leaf or the sunlight in a way that you had never seen before, as teeming with sacrality. It's just hard not to adopt an attitude of reverence towards what it is we're seeing in that film. So what Malick does, much like Heidegger, is he gets us to see the richness and just the awesomeness of being in all of its multiplicity. Okay, well, so there's something else that I wanted to mention, and it's closely related to what I've been saying, and it has to do with Malick's style. It's this: he makes the most poetical films I've ever seen. His films are, simply put, poetry in motion. Unlike other Hollywood directors who speak to us in, well, let's say hard and utilitarian and predictable ways, what Malick does is he whispers and he intimates and he beckons and he opens up spaces instead of filling them. He just operates within an altogether different cinematic language. It's just not an everyday prosaic one. Now, once again, I think that there's a Heideggerian influence here. You see, according to Heidegger, poetry has a revealing power that ordinary language just doesn't have. Poetry can disclose our world and transform our existence in a way that everyday language cannot. It can make us look at reality more deeply. The problem is that we've forgotten this because of the monotonous imposition of everyday language, which is, of course, calculative and scientific and utilitarian, and which belongs to the empire of the greater technological attitude to the world that I mentioned earlier. In other words, for us, language has come to be about writing as efficiently and as univocally as possible, without any ambiguity. But this is why poetry is so important for Heidegger. Because it admits of ambiguity and indetermination, it's able to disclose to us ways of seeing and understanding the world that a strictly utilitarian and scientific language cannot. In other words, poetry presents a language that's not frozen in a hard, crystalline, locked up form. Well, I think that Malick understands this. He understands that we inhabit such a complicated and multifaceted and mysterious place that only poetry can reveal this for us. Mere prose filmmaking, if you will, is just not enough. And this is pretty obvious when we watch Tree of Life. I mean, there's hardly any narrative structure there, nor is there any traditional dialogue, just to mention a few things. He just hasn't bounded his work within our usual language barriers. And it's precisely because of this that what we see when we watch this film are a series of revelations. Revelations that our everyday language has all the while been concealing from us. Okay, well, so, since I've been referring to Heidegger quite a bit here, I might as well bring him in one last time, because I think it would be instructive, actually. Okay, so the other thing that's pretty striking about the film is the juxtaposition between the main character, Jack, and his life as a child, and Jack as an adult. I mean, just look at the different environments that they find themselves in. Jack, as a child, is living in some small, intimate town in the American Midlands, where we get a real palpable sense of the organic atmosphere there. A sense, for instance, of the unfolding of long summer days. And there are kids constantly playing outside, swinging on trees, and surrounded by empty spaces to wander around in and explore. Jack just seems to be immersed in this cozy little world. Okay, well, now fast forward some 30 years later, and now we find Jack in some modern air-conditioned home working in a city and ultra-modern building marked by glass and metal. And unlike the younger Jack, this Jack seems, well, he seems somewhat lost or alienated. Now, here I think Malick is again intimating some Heideggerian themes. So, for Heidegger, technology produces, well, it produces homelessness. Now, this is partly due to the destruction of particular locations and traditions that technology brings in its wake. I mean, what we often see is that what was once a place of community, tied to a particular bit of earth, well, what happens to it? Well, it becomes a strip mall or a financial district, right? But for Heidegger, we can't ever be at home that way. No, we're only really at home when we're at one with our land in its own integrity and characteristics, not with those enforced upon it. I mean, for example, with the young Jack, there was a sense in which his days were governed by nature's cycles, by dawn and by dusk, right? He lived in harmony with his particular environment, and it in part determined the scope of his days. His world was a unified one. He was attuned to his own particular world with its own sky and its own earth. Well, this for Heidegger is home. This is real dwelling, as he sometimes calls it. Now, notice the older Jack seems to feel, as I mentioned, somewhat unhappy in his world. And here's the thing. That's no surprise. It's because he's not dwelling. He's out of tune. He's rootless, disconnected from his surroundings. Everything around him is leveled out and monotonous and homogenized. And so there's no locality. I mean, even the air-conditioned buildings that he lives and works in immunizes him from the seasons that hover outside the dome of the technological achievement. Now, this is the oblivion of being, as Heidegger says. And it's the source of our alienation and restlessness. Bye for now.